Everybody's had some adventures. Everybody's had a few close calls. Everybody's got a story. What's yours?
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 17 of Cool Story with David J. McNeil. This episode is part 2 of a 3-parter with the very engaging and always entertaining Mr. Tommy Chong. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support. This episode picks up my conversation with the one and only Canadian-American actor, writer, director, musician, businessman, cannabis rights activist, and comedian Tommy Chong. Sticking with the theme from part 1, we did lose the signal briefly during this chat, but after that, it was smooth sailing. We covered a lot of ground in part 2. We talked about race, politics, growing up in Calgary, the explosion of the popularity of Cheech and Chong, and Tommy's years as a stand-up comic. At one point during the conversation, I asked Tommy if he liked stand-up as an art form. And not because I had ignored the fact that he had done the circuit as a stand-up for so many years, but because I wondered whether he loved it as much as being part of an ensemble, whether perhaps being on the stage by himself was maybe not as much of a rush as it was to work with Cheech on stage. But of course that proved to not be the case, as the question sparked a ton of memories about working the clubs and all of the incredible artists, stand-ups, comedians he got to work with during that era. But as Tommy pointed out in part 1, he has always been around greatness. And if anything, this episode delved into a lot of memories of mixing, mingling, and sharing a reefer or two with some of the biggest stars and luminaries of our times. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's have Tommy tell his story. I see you. Unmute. I just unmute. Recording. Let me see.
Unmute. Okay.
Gallery view. Mute audio. I see you with a big bunch of weed in your arms.
That's me.
That's you.
No, you froze almost.
Yeah, I still can't hear you.
Oh, you still can't.
Oh, there you go.
That?
Yeah. Now I heard you. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, I said, can you hear me? And you said, no, I still can't hear you.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't at the time. That's universal hand signal for I can't hear anything.
Oh, okay.
So how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, man.
Yeah.
I'm doing fine.
So you're chatting with all kinds of people because the election's coming up?
Well, yeah, the election, weed. It's mostly about weed being legal, and it's a lot of marijuana things, a lot of marijuana talk.
Yeah. And
actually, one of the guys I talked to said, we don't call it marijuana anymore. We call it cannabis.
Oh, yeah?
Marijuana is the slave name. So,
right.
So we'll call it cannabis.
Yeah, well, I guess whenever something changes status, they always want to rename it, right?
Yeah.
I get the feeling, At this point in our conversation, I lost the connection one more time. When Tommy and I reconnected about a minute later, the conversation moved from marijuana being considered a slave name for cannabis to his own experiences witnessing racism around him as a young man.
Well, I was with a black band for years, and we fought through that whole mindset.
Yeah.
Because they're Canadian blacks. And it's a difference. They had to endure this being the only black kid in a school kind of thing, and as a result, you get to be friends with the racist
right.
people, and you allow for that ignorance because it's just ignorance, And it's the way people, like Trumpies now, it's the same thing. They don't think they're racist, but they are, because it's more than anything, it's just ignorance. You're just ignorant of the fact, that's all.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people seem to think that you have to, to be a racist, you have to be really vulgar with people and all kinds of stuff. But being racist just means you don't think other people deserve the same rights as you do. Right?
Well, it's not, I don't think it's so much. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. And they have that. Yeah, it's what's the word? Entitlement.
Right.
They think if you got any kind of mix in you, I mean, certain people, then you weren't entitled to be, for some reason, I don't know. It's just ignorant, just a whole ignorant approach, especially in Calgary. I grew up in Calgary. Come on. Everybody was equal. Except the black, everybody was treated equal, but it was everybody, because we had everything, Italians, Jews, every kind of race mix you could think of. But yet Calgary was very racist, like cowboys were.
Yeah.
And I think it has a lot to do with the business that they're in. Because, like farmers and that, they can be racist because they don't want the cows messing up with the horses.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting thing. But, what's that Chinese proverb or saying, may you live in interesting times? We certainly live in interesting times. I don't know if they're,
Oh, they're great. Oh, they're great. I love it. Because everything... my mother once told me, she said, be careful what you do and say because you're going to be noticed of who you are. And so she always used to tell me, make sure that, you know that. You're always going to be noticed. And so in other words, try to look presentable and try to act presentable.
And when she said that to you, did she say that to you because you were becoming well known, or she just meant that in general, that the average person should be careful what they say because they'll be noticed?
No, I was real young.
Okay.
I was real young, and you know what? She was harboring a secret. She was harboring the fact that she was quarter Indian, and I was an eighth. We would be considered half breeds or natives, and it was okay to be half Chinese for some reason.
Right.
But it was not okay to be, it was a family secret that we just found out after we did the DNA. And then everything just fell into place, because I had a crazy aunt, and she was an alcoholic for the want of a better description. They planned their drinking after 5 or whatever it was. And then she never stopped until the next morning. But her story was great because she, in a drunken stupor, she met another drunk and they got married.
Right.
And there were 2 drunks married. Well, he died. And then she found out that he had been awarded the Victoria Cross. And he got an enormous pension because of that. And so for the rest of her life, she had this huge pension coming in every month.
Yeah.
And she was just by herself, and we were her only family. And so we anything that we needed, a new stove, a guitar, an amplifier, anything like that. Auntie Irene had the money. She would buy it for us.
When was the last time you were back out? When was the last time you were in Alberta?
God, years.
On a tour or something?
No, we went back for. Oh yeah, you're right. The last time I was there was touring with Cheech and Shelby.
Yeah,
we did a show. We did a show at Glenmore at the Glenmore casino.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it like?
And I had all my old friends. I had my first girlfriend.
Oh, nice.
And they're all there. We're all in our 80s.
Yeah.
And they're all there. It's a funny bunch. The only I got adopted into the Black community in Calgary, and as a result, they all came. It was so cute. And one of the daughters is just so gorgeous. model. I mean, she's just strikingly beautiful. And that was a daughter. And her mom's blind. She took some bad medicine or something, and she went blind. But they always forget that she's blind, and they always walk off and leave her. Hey, wait. So, very funny. As soon as I got with the black culture, my laughter increased because we would do things that would make you laugh hysterically. It was all about dance and laughter and music, and then it became music.
And then, and the rest is history.
Yeah. That's where it all came from.
We talked a bit before about your experience with the Vancouvers and how you were a musician. I think you said you started playing music at 4. How did you make the jump to the whole Cheech and Chong thing and doing comedy? Was that a plan, or was that just kind of a fun thing you stumbled upon and it took off, or?
No, it was ordained, because when I was with Motown, when we go to Chicago actually it started before I was with Motown. We went down to LA and I got turned on to the Committee in San Francisco. It was an improvisational nightclub, not improvisational show. Yeah. And so that was my first taste of improv acting, and I got totally hooked on it. Yeah. And so wherever we'd go, we'd be in Chicago, I'd go see Second City, and wherever we were, they had the improv. And so I got, and being a musician, we were like a cover band. Yeah. All musicians are. You learn other tunes, and so in learning a tune, you had to hear it over and over and over again, and then it would sink in. And so I had the same approach with comedy. And that's why most musicians are really good at remembering jokes, because they have the timing and everything. And so I really got involved in, just for my own enjoyment. And then when I went to Vancouver to work on the nightclubs after I got fired from Motown, I changed one of the clubs into an improvisational theater. Okay. A strip club, and I used the strippers as actresses, and then that's where I met Cheech. Cheech was hired as a straight man, and then Cheech and I did comedy for 9 months. Yeah. 9 months of improv, and then we got fired, and at the right time, and then Cheech and I stayed together, and the rest is history. Yeah. Yeah. And when was it, how does it happen that you guys are doing your stage work and then you get an opportunity to do a film? Is that something you guys chase down yourselves, or somebody come to you and say, you guys should put this on the screen, or? Oh, no, and we went and got everything that we got. We went out and got it. When we came to LA, just the two of us, because I'd been in the Chitlin circuit and the black clubs, and I knew that system. So we worked a lot of black clubs, and we opened for a lot of black acts, and so we performed in front of a lot of black people. So our show got very hip, very, very, very solid. And then when we started playing in LA, in the Valley, then we used Cheech's Chicanoism, the fact that he's Chicano. Then we built an act around him being a Chicano, and so we conquered that world. Yeah, and then we got discovered by a record producer, and so we made 9 albums with them. And everyone was a hit. We got a Grammy for one, and we just went crazy in the comedy. And then I got tired of it. Then we do a record tour. Then I got tired of going to Australia, because we were popular in Australia, and we'd miss summer in America, and then we'd miss summer in Australia. And so for 3 years we just had nothing but winter. Mm-hmm. And so then I decided, I want to get off the road. And so I wrote a movie. And then, then Lou Adler, our record producer, he got the feeling, that I was going to do a movie. And so then he went and got us a movie deal with him involved.
Yeah.
And so then the movie started out to be, the working title was Cheech and Chong's Greatest Hits.
Mhm.
Because he owned all our albums, he wanted us to do, a movie with using all the characters.
Sure.
But instead, Cheech and I decided we would just use the Pedro and Man character,
Mhm.
and we'll do a whole movie around one set of characters. And that's what happened with Up in Smoke.
Yeah.
And then once we did Up in Smoke, then we just went to another stratosphere, and we never came back.
Yeah. I don't know if I asked you this before, but do you remember the first time you smoked weed?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sure do. I remember plain as day. I was 17 years old. I was in a jazz club in Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Mhm.
And Raymond Ma, this Chinese bass player, come up, and he'd been in LA, and he handed me a joint and a Lenny Bruce record. And I took him. I put the joint in my pocket. Then we smoked his.
Yeah.
And that was when I first little hint of the pot culture, where you just share a joint. And I took a couple of tokes, and I was listening to a record called "Lonely Woman" by Ornette Coleman.
Okay.
And my memory is, again, being a musician, you have to remember stuff.
Mhm.
You can't just let it go. And so these memories stick in my head, and that was the first time.
Yeah. So I'm guessing it was pretty good weed then. It was crap weed.
I had nothing to chew, compared to what?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
The only weed is the good weed.
Yeah.
That's all you got. That's the best weed in town, man.
Yeah. I remember first time I ever smoked weed, I think I was 14 or 15, and I went out with a couple buddies. It was a Sunday afternoon, and we used to climb on top of schools and go get all the tennis balls and stuff off the roof. And so we climbed up on top of the school, and one of my buddies was with a guy named Claude and another guy named Tom. And one of the guys said, "Hey, you want to smoke a joint?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure, I'll try that." And so we smoked a joint on the roof, which is a bad idea because then I had to figure out how to climb off the roof.
Oh, you were stuck up there for a while, I bet.
Yeah, so it took a while until finally I figured out how to climb back down. And then my buddy played a joke on me, and this is probably a joke that a lot of people played on each other, but it scared the shit out of me. So we're walking home, and I'm like, oh, I start sweating, and I'm thinking, well, I got to go home and have dinner with my parents, and they're going to know I'm high. So now I'm nervous as hell, right? They would not approve. So we're walking home, and I've got to go home and have dinner with my parents. They're going to figure out for sure. I said, how long does this last for? And my buddy Claude, without a beat, says, about 2 weeks. So I start freaking. I'm like, I got exams. I gotta try out for baseball. I got another tryout for lacrosse. I can't be high for 2 weeks, man. I got shit to do. And he did it without a beat. And he was like 14. I thought that is a genius joke to play on somebody first time they ever smoke weed.
Pure pot joke.
Yeah.
Oh, this is great. So how did the dinner go? Did you make a fool of yourself?
No, I just went home and I did that thing where I didn't talk much and I looked at my plate. I just tried to be as inconspicuous as I could.
And everybody looks at you, oh, he's stoned.
Yeah, they're just a weird teenager. Teenagers are weird anyways at that
Where
age.
was that, in Toronto?
No, that was in Ottawa. I lived in Ottawa when I was a kid. Yeah, my dad worked for the civil service, and so we.
Did you ever skate on the canal on the river there?
Oh yeah, all the time. We did that all the time when we were kids.
Wasn't that fun?
Yeah, Ottawa was a great place to grow up. Because there's so much fun stuff to do, even in the winter, like skiing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean they and then I loved the way they had the old commissionaires. They were the police. They would you had to behave yourself. Anybody got out of line, those commissioners come over and shake their finger at you.
Yeah. No, it was a great place to grow up. But I got into the arts and stuff, and it wasn't a place to work in TV and film. But it was a great place to grow up. Did you like growing up in Calgary at all?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I had a beautiful childhood.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I mean, I had no, you don't know any better. But the summers were long and hot, and the winters were long and cold.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it, every bit of it. That's my memories. That's my favorite memories now.
Mm-hmm. Being a kid and being carefree.
Oh, running wild.
Yeah. That's one of the things I like about being down here in Costa Rica is all the kids down here, they kind of play like we used to play. There's no there's no helicopter parenting, and the kids are just running around all day long, and they go home when the sun goes down, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Which you don't get to do in a lot.
And they take care of themselves. They make sure they do their chores, make sure they do what they have to do, and then they go out and play with their kids, with their friends. They make up their own games. And
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it reminds me of when I was a kid, and I find when I go back home to North America that the kids don't play that way as much as they used to.
No.
You know, there's too many rules. They're worried.
It's like a iPhone culture now.
Mm-hmm.
The kids are always on their phones, and they're playing with their phones and back and forth, and it's, or it's organized sports, and parents are are treated like rebels or something.
Yeah.
I took my son to play t-ball, and it was organized, and I got thrown out of the game because you're not supposed to heckle the other kid. so I got thrown out of the game.
You're one of those parents.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, well, you get excited about your kids, right?
Yeah. Come on, you can do it. My kid could hit the ball, but he couldn't. He had the slowest takeoff ever. He would kind of with his wheels, spin his wheels first, and then he'd run.
Right. Yeah.
But my oldest boy, he was a star athlete, no matter where he went. But my wife put him in French schools, and so he's kind of bilingual. My daughter is totally bilingual, but my son, he went to I forget the name of it, but it was a French school.
Lycée?
Lycée Français, yeah.
Yeah.
And but they would have, a French kind of styled sports, they did.
Sure.
Mandated, but it wasn't organized. It wasn't great, which was good.
Yeah.
Because I like the arts better, And when he'd have to run a race, he'd just kick off his shoes. He'd run barefoot.
Yeah.
And he was fast as can be.
Yeah. That's interesting. I did that. I went to French schools. First time I went to an English school was when I was like 15 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. It's kind of like having different languages. It's like being like a musician. It's a different language. It makes your brain work differently. It's a good workout for your brain to switch languages
it's the
back
best.
and forth.
It's the best. My son, he was taught the French manners. And so he's so comfortable around adults, because he's got this way of looking at the adults, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Being in their world.
Right.
And shaking their hand, yes, sir, no, sir, and yes, ma'am. And, all our friends just love him to death because he's been that way since he was a little guy.
Yeah.
Because that's what they teach in there,
Yeah.
My other son, he was the ones on Vancouver Island now. He was a little different. He was a musician.
Yeah.
He was a stone musician, drummer.
How many total kids have you got? Six kids?
I got two boys and a daughter with my second wife.
Yes.
And I got two daughters with my first wife.
Okay.
I got 4 grandkids, and I got 2 great grandkids. And I got 4 or 5 now because I got a granddaughter.
Yeah.
Just brand new.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
And how often do you ever all get together, or is it that's kind of hard to orchestrate?
We can't do it now because of the pandemic.
Well, yeah.
We made a point. Their kids, they organize it, and we always ended up doing Christmas together,
Yeah.
And it was in Vancouver, which was fun, because we lived at the bottom of a ski mountain.
Yeah.
And so everybody goes skiing all for the holidays. And then we moved down here, and because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to get together on any great lengths. But
talking about kids, you get a lot of you get a lot of really young people coming up to you and know who you are for different reasons. I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, Leo of the '70s show was the biggest one.
Yeah, that was got you a whole new audience.
You got me the latest crop, you know.
Yeah.
They're older now. They're all older now. And now Zootopia and Dancing with the Stars. When I was on Dancing with the Stars, it was really weird because I was walking to some mall and these young girls went screaming, that's him, that's him.
Yeah.
And they came around me. I felt it was weird, man. Young girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved you. Oh.
That's a whole different thing, eh?
Oh my God. You know, because Cheech and I, I'm playing an old stoner on TV, you know. But when you're in Dance with the Stars, you know, they have you looking kind of dapper, you know, and young kids, they love to dance. You know, they love to dance. And so the young girls were, I never had that before. It was nice. I liked it.
That was a really great show, the 70s show.
That's 70, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I knew somebody else who worked on that. I was lucky enough to get to know Mitch Hedberg, and he had a part on that. He played.
I remember Mitch.
Yeah, he played the cafeteria guy.
Yeah.
On that show.
Yeah.
It's a shame he's gone. He was a hell of a talent.
Wasn't he?
Yeah.
Whoa. How'd he go?
He died of an overdose.
That's right.
Yeah.
God, what a talent. What a talent.
Yeah, funny guy. Very much in the same vein as Stephen Wright, you know. Just Killer one-liners, those
headshots, those observations.
Yeah.
Wright's still going strong, huh?
Yeah. I've had the chance to see him before. He's still doing well. He's good. He's good fun to see.
That's excellent stand-up stuff. Oh boy.
Yeah. Who's your favorite to see do stand-up?
Well, you know, I went through Louis C.K.
Yeah.
I loved Louis. I saw him right in the beginning, you know, when he started.
Yeah.
Let me think. Yeah.
Or do you like stand-up as an art form?
Oh yeah. I was involved very deeply in it. But let me think. You know, Chris Rock and
Chris Rock,
David Chappelle. You know,
that show he did was incredible.
You know. Which one?
The Chappelle Show.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah,
incredible. Oh, he's a very hip guy. Very hip guy. I was in a movie with him. And I like Dave. Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think of Steve Martin.
Yeah.
No, I really like Steve Martin because we come up basically the same time. You know, Cheech and Chong and Steve Martin. And oh man, I saw him when he first started at the Troubadour and at the Roxy actually. And, what a powerhouse. What a powerhouse guy. Yeah. What a mind. Yeah. And guess what? The other day I'm at a fight. Sugar Ray Leonard was promoting a fight. And all the celebs, all the rappers were there. And I go to the bathroom and I come out and there's the guy who said, "Hey man, I'm a big fan. I'm Eddie Murphy."
That's pretty cool, eh?
I said, "Oh, wow, Eddie Murphy." And apparently his kid's a big fan of mine.
Yeah.
And so this kid saw me, and so Eddie wanted to meet me, and you know, so we come up and say, "I'm a big fan." There's another genius, you know.
Yeah.
For a while, that stand-up that he did, raw, that thing.
Yeah. Raw and comedian. I used to buy his. Yeah, I used to have a couple of his albums back in the day when that was a thing to do. Yeah,
powerful.
Yeah,
because he could do all those, you know. And then he got on that Cosby kick, all that.
Yeah.
Oh, and Cosby. I knew Bill.
Yeah.
Pretty well. I loved his stand-up, his early stand-up. You know. I try to defend him, you know, when he got caught with the girl. my daughter worked for him on a show called You Bet Your Life.
Right.
And she was the girl that was his sidekick, you know, right? And she always loved Bill, you know, and she got to know the daughters and everything. And it wasn't until after he got incarcerated that she told me that Bill kind of put his little. He tried on her, but you know she's too
Right.
hip for that. You know she's been streetwise since she was 15. You know,
Yeah.
so she wasn't going to go to "I'll help you with your career" thing. You know,
Right. Yeah. I've known a couple of people that have met him. I knew a woman who was kind of a little bit. Yeah. Some people are very good at compartmentalizing things, eh?
Yeah.
You know, showing you what they want and then keeping their dirty little, you know.
Well, you know, it's a soul. You sell your soul at some point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's what I loved about Lenny Bruce. You know, he never sold his soul.
Yeah.
You know, he kept true to his form. You know, Sam Kinison was another one.
Yeah.
So they try to belittle Sam. You know, they try to knock him down to, you know, that little tiny little character on TV.
Mm-hmm.
But Sam was great. Sam was a big fan.
Yeah.
He was funny. When I first started doing stand-up, I think it was my second gig. I was at the Laugh Factory, and I barely had 5 minutes. You know, I just had enough to get on the stage and get off. And Sam heard that I was doing comedy, and he, first of all, he was a mainstay at the Comedy Store. And he never went to the Laugh Factory,
Right?
Because Jamie didn't want him there, you know. And so Jamie tried everything to make sure that Sam wouldn't come. And so when I was there, you know, to do my little 5 minutes, Sam heard about it. He came over, and so I said to Sam, "You're going to do some time?" He said, "For you, I'll do some time." And so he gets on stage, kind of really takes the mic out of the guy's hand who was on stage, you know, and started screaming at everybody in the club. And a lot of them couldn't wait. They couldn't run out of there fast enough.
Yeah.
And it was, hey, for Tommy Chong, I'll do anything.
Yeah.
Oh, he was funny.
It's one thing to get bumped.
Huh?
Go ahead. I was going to say it's one thing to get bumped. It's another thing to get bumped by Sam Kinison. You don't want to go on after Sam.
he literally took the mic out of the guy's hand. And then he went crazy. Oh, he was funny. Then I met Bill Hicks too. Are you familiar with Bill Hicks?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I didn't know Bill at the time, but I know of his work after the fact. You know, after he got sick and everything.
Oh yeah. He was dying of I guess cancer or something.
Yeah.
And he was on a barbecue tour where he wasn't working. He was just going around. Him and his buddy were going to all the good barbecue stands in America.
Yeah.
Like in Kansas, and I was working in Kansas at the time, and he heard I was there, so he came down to the club and sat and watched a set of mine. But I love Bill Hicks too, man. He was crazy.
Yeah.
So good. Him and Sam, they all came out of the same cesspool.
Angry little troop of new comedians.
Well, it worked. Yeah. You see, Sam got his act because he was so crazy they wouldn't put him on till 2 a.m.
Right.
And so people got used to being up at 2 a.m. to go see Sam because he was so crazy. And then Robin Williams. I was there when Robin started his act. Started doing his stand-up at the Comedy Store.
Mm-hmm.
Another crazy improv, just off the top of his head kind of guy. Yeah, I was there. when and Cheech and I had, because we did our records, we started before the Comedy Stores.
Mm-hmm.
And then halfway through our career, they started opening the stores. And after we did Up in Smoke, Cheech and I went and a week at the Comedy Store.
Okay.
And that was one of the best times. The greatest thing after our first show, we went to walk off stage, and Richard Pryor was there helping us off the stage as a gesture of,
the respect.
Of respect. Yeah. That was some good times, man.
Yeah.
No, I love stand-up. I always do. Now it's a different breed. But I still love it, and in my car, I turn on the comedy channel and I listen to the guys. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. You ever get starstruck?
I got cured of that really fast by Jack Nicholson.
Oh yeah.
I met him at a party. Teach and I had just, we just did our first album, and we're at this party, and everybody was there. The Stones were there, all the Rolling Stones, and Mick Jagger, and John Lennon, and Paul, not Paul, but John, Rod Stewart. And so I was looking for a place to smoke a big fat joint, a big stinky joint. So I went into Lou's bed. I asked Lou said, go in the bedroom. So I went in the bedroom and I lit up a joint. I looked down. There's Paul sitting on John Lennon sitting on the floor. Mm-hmm. So I walked over, handed him the joint, and John said, no, I got my immigration problems. I'm not smoking right now. And so then I turn around and Rod Stewart comes in and he starts messing with his hair. Remember that hair?
Yeah.
He started fixing his hair. So I offered him a joint, and he said no. So I smoked up a little bit to put it out, and I walked out, and who run into us? Jack Nicholson. And I just saw Jack on the screen, The Last Detail, I think it was, the movie. And in the movie, he does this scene where he's combing his hair, and he doesn't have any hair. And he combs it for a good 10 minutes on the screen.
Yeah.
And I was amazed. I'm watching the movie, and I was amazed at that, the way, the command that he had, because he just commanded that. And so I mentioned it to Jack right away. And I said, oh, man, that scene you were in, you're combing your hair. And I said, was that improv, or was that written in the script? And he just looked at me like I had shit on my head or something. And he said, excuse me. And he pushed me aside and he walked away. Yeah. Just stiff knee. I mean, you couldn't set it up any worse, any better. And because I'm quite sure he didn't know who I was. Because after we became famous, and Jack and Lou, were there. In fact, they would, every once in a while, we'd drive to the Laker game with Jack. Right. He'd be driving. And that was another. It was like skydiving, because Jack didn't know any rules. He'd drive down the wrong side of the road to get in the parking lot. Right. And the cars coming like crazy, and he'd pull out his big Mercedes and just bypass everybody, then pull in. And then, he was Jack Nicholson. Yeah. And, that's where we got the Basketball Jones, the song. Okay. Because Cheech was in the back seat singing, I got Basketball Jones, got Basketball Jones. just dying because Jack was driving so crazy.
You used his car in Up in Smoke, right? His Beetle.
Yeah. He donated it to Lou. Lou was the director, so he donated that one. And we put the Volkswagen, the Rolls-Royce grill on it. Yeah.
I saw somebody here in my town in Costa Rica down here. People down here drive golf carts and tuk-tuks, right? And I saw some guy the other day. He painted up his tuk-tuk to look like a Rolls Royce. It was like black and white checker with a big Rolls Royce thing on the front. I thought that was pretty good.
I love that.
I was going to ask you too about. We were talking about stand-up, and I was checking out some a stand-up you did a few years ago. It was at a strip club. It was something you did with Shelby. You were at a strip club, and you were talking about the whole thing where you got busted for the bongs. And
right.
Yeah, and I remember years ago, because when I met your daughter Precious, she was telling me about what had happened and how you and your son had got in trouble with that and what had happened. It was still early days, and I guess you didn't really know all the information at the time. Back then, seemed like the story was that you had a kid who worked at your shop, and he was kind of like the weak link, and somebody talked him into shipping a bong. But then I watched your stand-up, and you were saying that the feds planted that guy in your shop.
Yeah, they did. They did, yeah. What happened? We were under surveillance for a year. I was, for sure. Yeah. And they'd find me in Arlington, Texas. And the narcs were so obvious. They wore headbands when no one was wearing headbands.
Right.
And the people that worked at the shop, they knew they were narcs. And so they would walk beside them with big DEA T-shirts on.
Right.
And stand next to them. Wherever they went, they would stand next to them. DEA. And I still didn't get the hint. Mm. And finally, they because I was there signing bongs and selling them. And so then he asked me to come outside. And I went outside, and they recorded this. And they showed it at my trial. The evidence was shown to my lawyers.
Yeah.
And they asked me, these pipes you're selling, they're not just for marijuana. They're not just for tobacco use only, are they? And I said, hell no.
Yeah.
These are pot. They're for pot. But he said, what are they for? I said, for pot, of course. That's why they're so good. They're glass and they're healthy. That I had no clue. I had so many clues, but I missed every one of them.
Yeah. And when I think of you going to prison, you got what, a little bit less than a year? Was that right?
I got 9 months.
9 months. Like aside from Johnny Cash going to prison, I can't think of few other people that would go to prison that would be more welcome than you to inmates. Right?
It was right from the get-go. See, I was in a camp in the back, but they wanted me to go through the gates in the front, officially. And so I went in there, gates, and they said, they apologized. We have to handcuff you. It's just a custom. So they handcuffed me, and then I went through the gates, and then they took the cuffs off. And then the guy says, okay, I'm driving you over to the camp. It was one of the guards, and I get in the truck, and he pulls out an album. He said, will you sign this for me? And so I signed the album for him, and then we got to the camp, and there was a Tommy Chong greeting team there. They greeted me. Jimmy, the guy that was in charge of wardrobe and everything, Jimmy took me in. He said, I'll show you around, man. He said, Chicano, I'm a big fan. I love you guys. And then I went and got my uniform. And he says, I got the best. It was a very, Chicanos are very fastidious about their clothes.
Yeah, sure.
And so he got me old OG Dickies.
Okay, yeah.
And only the hip guys had them. So he got me a nice outfit. He got my whole outfit, and then they showed me where my bunk was going to be. And then one guy, he says, man, are you hungry? You want anything? He opened his locker, and it's just full of food. I thought he was a commissary. I thought he was the guy that sold the food. But it was just his locker. Yeah. And then as soon as I got settled on, with the bunk and the locker, then they said, these guys want to take pictures, and so I went out in the yard, and I spent the rest of the day taking pictures with all the inmates. And then they eventually had a rule that I couldn't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, I did pictures with everybody. And while I was there, I was trying to take pictures, and I couldn't because these pink clouds were just huge in the sky, and they're beautiful. I'm kind of like a sky watcher, mm-hmm. and they kept telling me, hey, can you look at the camera? Because I kept looking up, looking at the pink clouds. And I had to go 2 weeks without a phone call home. Mm-hmm. And so then I went back to my cube, and then I got introduced to all the first people that come up, all the guys come up. And then eventually the guy that I ended up hanging with the most, or one of the guys, Eric Larson, he was a golf caddy for Mark Alcavecchi, and he was doing time there, and he was like in charge of all the intelligent stars and that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he come up, and then when I met Eric, and then he ran the garden, the vegetable garden that they grew vegetables for the homeless, for mm-hmm. the food bank.
Right.
And he ran that, and we were allowed to eat out of the garden. And so I only went to the mess hall just because I wanted to go, just to have that experience of eating with the other inmates.
Yeah.
And but for the most part, I had these home cooked gourmet meals every night.
Yeah.
There's 4 of us, and we would eat in the TV room. So we had like a bank of television sets to watch while we ate. And oh man, it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. What did you learn most from that, or what surprised you most about being in that situation?
Well, I grew up with a lot of ex-cons, because when I lived in Calgary, there, people would get released from prison and there'd be no place for them to live.
Mm-hmm.
And when we moved up to our nice wartime house on the North Hill in Calgary, we had an extra bed. We had an extra room. Actually, my sister bunked with my mom. We had an extra room for extra money, and we rented it out to the students at the Tech's college. And then I started running into these ex-cons, get out of jail guys, and guys that just got out, nowhere to go, nowhere, so quite a few came home and lived with me, and that's where I got my stories from prison and everything else from these guys. And so that's where I really got a mindset into the prison system, what was going on, and granted, for the most part, there are bad actors in there, but a lot of times it was just unfortunate, poor people that, just had a bad day or a bad night or something,
Yeah.
And so that changed my whole attitude toward incarceration into that. And so when I got playing music, because again, though I was in Army Cadets, and because I could play guitar, there was another guitar player who sang, and then we teamed up, and he was an Elvis impersonator, so full-blood Sarcee native, Dick Bird, and so I backed him up, whenever he needed a backup. And then eventually I started dancing, doing, the community dances, rock and roll. That's when rock and roll, rhythm and blues, rock and roll. And I learned how to jive, learned how to do Lindy Hop. And I got pretty good with my black partner. We won a few dance contests. And then I hooked up with an athlete named Tommy Milton. He was a singer and a very good running back. And so we put a band together, and mostly football players. And so we were pretty well-built band, We were like the first punk rock guys,
Right,
we were for real jocks first, and then musicians and singers second. And so that was our band, and that I got a taste of fame. And then I started a teen club in Calgary because of my experiences with the ex-cons and that, And so I realized that Calgary teenagers needed something to do, Saturday night. There was nothing for them to do. And so we started our dances, and they got very popular. So popular that we eventually got kicked out of Calgary. And so we went to Vancouver, and that's when I became a full-time entertainer.
Became a career.
Yeah. Full-time.
Yeah.
And other than a few in between, because, being Canadian, you're never out of work. There's always somebody needs somebody somewhere in Canada.
Yeah.
There's always a help wanted sign somewhere.
Yeah.
And I worked all my life. Usually I would be taking over a job that a kid, he's going away or leaving, and say, hey, deliver meat. Do you want the job? Yeah. I never turned down a job. Never turned down a cry for help.
Yeah.
And
and the beauty was back then too, that you could, if you were 14, 13 or whatever, as long as you wanted to work, you could get a job.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. There was always something to be done, like you said.
Always something. Yep. Yeah. Hold this, do that. you know. And then as I got older, you know, I thought I wanted to work for like the telephone company,
Right.
you know. So I applied there, and the next thing you know, I got hired. But it was just in the band. We had a band at the time, you know. But you know, we weren't making the music was like a hobby,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And whatever we made, we'd go and spend it in Chinatown to have a meal, you know.
Yeah.
Because we had money.
Yeah.
Whenever you had money in Calgary, you went to Chinatown and had a good meal.
Yeah. Was there a moment where you knew you could maybe do like have a career in entertainment? Do you remember when that was?
Oh no, it was when we got when we went to Vancouver. You know, we did our usual, you know, apply and then get the job, and then the band broke up because we never had an agent, you know, to keep us on the road, and then we got a call. We had fans in Vancouver, and they started. I forgot his name now. Anyway, he started another nightclub, and then he got Tommy, the singer, and Tommy called us up, says, you know, he wants the band back, and so Bernie and we drove from Calgary to Vancouver for the second time, and there we are, and this time we just moved to Vancouver. And we stayed there, and the band played for a while, and then we broke up. You know, we ran out of gigs, and we broke up. Then I started doing solo gigs, and then the band got back. Yeah, we got back together again. Then we met Bobby Taylor, and then Bobby Taylor came, and then we really started doing well. And then this songwriter heard about us, and he came down, and he saw some poetry that I had written, and so he put it to music, and we got "Does Your Mama Know About Me?"
Right.
And then that took us to Motown, and and the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, you don't strike me as a guy who stresses a lot. I could be wrong, but no. Did you? Would you, if you ever look back and go, "Oh, I wish I'd done that different," or it seems like you just you go wherever the wind takes you?
Whenever, yeah, exactly. Wherever the bud takes me.
The bud, yeah.
Yeah. No, I when I was playing, you know, when we had one of the bands, I was playing, we met these jazz musicians, and this one, God, what's his name now? Anyway, he's a guitar player in Toronto, I guess. Sonny Greenwich.
Mm-hmm.
Sonny Greenwich was his name. He turned me on to my first metaphysical book. It was called The Third Eye by T. Lobsang Rampa.
Okay.
And it's a story about a Englishman who was a reincarnated Buddhist monk, and he came back as an Englishman, but he somehow remembered who he was, you know, and so he wrote a book about the third eye, about the whole Tibetan culture and you know, the overself and all that, and so that got me interested in the metaphysical world, and then I started reading other books. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna leave here. They're gonna come pick us up at 6. Okay.
Okay, picks us up. Okay.
Yeah. Getting to be like
my boss just came in. The commandant just gave me orders. But what was I saying?
Just you were talking about that book that you read, and you started getting into the metaphysical.
Oh yeah. So then I read another book by Catherine Ponder, and that really stuck with me. You know, about the affirmative thinking and everything, and that got me further. And then I was in New York. This is after. Let's see, this is Chichenai.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Chichenai. We're in New York. We got a gig, and summertime, and I'm walking. Were we doing movies? Could have been movies, could have been the movie time. Anyway, I was walking to the gym, and all of a sudden, I felt this force, literally, turn me into a building. It was HarperCollins publisher. Yeah. And boom, I'm in this thing. And it was like someone was pushing me, tugging me. And next thing I went over this row of books. And then literally my hand reached down and picked up this book. And it's the autobiography of Joel S. Goldsmith. And I took the book home, and I became a Goldsmith disciple.
Right.
Joel S. Goldsmith. Do you know who he is?
I don't know.
Check him out.
Okay.
Check him out. He's online. All these guys are online. And so then I really got into Goldsmith, and he's all about, why we're here and what we're doing and all that, Yeah. And then in this book, in Goldsmith books, he talks about Emmett Fox. And Emmett Fox is another spiritualist, which I am reading now. There it is over there. Emmett Fox is now the book that I read all the time now. I went through all the Goldsmith things. I read every one of them, turned my kids onto them, turned my daughter onto them. And then when I was in prison, there was some Goldsmith books there. He was really good for people in prison. And that's where I'm at now. I'm with Emmett Fox now. And when I'm going to be doing a podcast with my son, he's in, like I said, in the west coast of Tofino in Vancouver Island. And we're going to do, because he's a healer, I'm also going to get more into Emmett Fox and on that line of thinking now. Because Emmett Fox explains the Bible. See, there's so many misconceptions about the Bible. In fact, that's what the most ministers or the preachers and that do. They take the Bible and they just use it, the way they
literally
see it. Yeah, exactly. And Emmett Fox explains that the Bible is fiction. It's from different stories, but for the most part, nobody wrote back in those days. They just told stories.
Right. Yeah.
And writing didn't come until the printing press, really.
Sure.
And that's why the Bible is written in verses and that, because these anal writers, had to have a way of piling everything.
Sure.
But in reality, these were streams of consciousness from the writers themselves.
Yeah.
And some of it is based on real people. But for the most part, it's a writer's imagination. But it's all divine inspiration. And so they're all the verses are filled with these incredible truths. But in order to find the truth, you really have to understand the symbols that were written in the Bible. Like mountain has a different word. When they say go to the mountain, a lot of times it just means the problem that you have at hand. That's your mountain that you have to climb.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so Emmett Fox, he goes through like the Lord's Prayer, the 10 Commandments, and that, and then he tells you what is meant. And then both these guys, they didn't write. They were recorded because they were given speeches or they were given talks and they were being channeled.
Yeah.
You see, and that happens to me every once in a while. I'll write, I'll be channeled, and I can feel it, I can feel it, and because I look at what I've written, and there's no way in the world I would think of that. It was just the channeling, and so that's where I'm at now, and part of with Joel Goldsmith, he was this Jewish businessman that kind of failed at everything until he found out that he had the power to heal. And what he would do, he was very intelligent. And he was from New York, a Jew, and he was raised kind of like Jews in America are raised, with Christmas trees, and they celebrate the holidays,
Right.
They weren't Orthodox at all. And he was very, but he had this gift, whatever it was. And then he became a reader at the Christian Science, the Mary Baker Eddy,
Right.
and he became a reader there. And then, but he was still trying to do his business. And the more he tried, the worse it got. And finally, he had to quit that business. Then he went into the healing business where he was healing.
Yeah.
And almost the same thing happened. But what people wanted to hear, they wanted to hear his talks,
Yeah.
So he became a healer, but again, trying to be a businessman healer, it didn't work out. And the way he became a healer was that his father texted him that he was dying, or the hospital texted him. He was in England, and his father was dying. And then Mary Baker, or one of the Christian scientists, says, your father doesn't have to die. You can heal him. So, and how do you heal him? He's, you just concentrate on God. And so Joel did that and put his mind. And so he went to pick up his father on boat. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
And his father was on the dock waving. He was all healed. And so Joel became a healer. And then he started doing speeches like Emmett Fox.
Mm-hmm.
And they were so in tune with everything that Emmett Fox, for instance, he would be called to go, say, to Mexico City to do a speech. And he would just get on the plane and get off the plane. And there's no itinerary, who's going to pick him up or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But he just knew that he was ordained to be there, and that someone would come and pick him up. And that started happening to me.
Yeah.
I was... Shelby and I, my wife, we were in Australia, and she didn't like Australia because they're kind of mean to women. so she left early and went to Hawaii with my son. He was a little guy at the time. And she said, okay, honey, I'll meet you in Hawaii. I said, okay, darling. And so I'm on the plane. The plane is getting ready to land. And then I realized, I don't know where she is. She never told me what hotel she was going to be.
Right.
I had no idea where I was going to meet her, period. And there was no cell phones at the time.
Yeah.
So the plane landed, and I just kind of said to myself, okay, where is she? And next thing you know, I took a cab, and I said, take me to Waikiki Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And he took me to the beach. I got out of the cab, paid the money, and I look up, there's my son, there's my wife on the beach, on the sand. And I walk up, and it was like, oh, hi, hon. It was, and then that's when I realized, how we are if we allow ourselves to go there.
To be open.
To be open, to let go. But in order to be there, there's a whole measure of truth.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, you can't have any hidden agendas, like you can't be doing any kind of hanky panky.
Right.
It doesn't work with hanky panky.
Right. You got to be open, full, wide.
Yeah. And you have to be in tune. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. And that's what I've been doing now. That's what meditation really is, by the way. Meditation is just rebooting. Mm-hmm. You reboot yourself, And that's what I tell people now. Oh, we're talking about comics, doing stand-up. I got invited. Oh, they wanted to give me an award at the Skirball Center. Mm-hmm. And when they give comics award, really, it's just a real cheap-ass way of getting them to do their act. For not even a trophy. Maybe a trophy, but a glass or something. It's just a cheap-ass trick to get them to, and then they load the line up with other comics that working for the free meal or whatever it is, you know,
Yeah.
but it's for the cause, you know. And so they asked me, they're going to honor me. Oh, okay. Well, if you honor Cheech and Chong, you know, you give us a Grammy or something,
Yeah.
you know, but honoring Tommy Chong by himself. And so I've been into the spiritual, the world a lot, you know. And so I went there, no act. Not even a bit. No joke. Not one. You know, because when you're getting paid, you prepare. You get a show. You know, but this is award. Oh, well, I'm going to give him an award. I'm going to give him a stream of consciousness for a couple of minutes, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Halfway through my stream of consciousness, my wife stands up and gives me the sign.
Yeah. And pull you off the stage
because I wasn't looking for a laugh.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for a laugh. I was there, and it was like almost like a Trump. You know, I was there as a stream of consciousness, but I touched nerves.
Yeah.
I touched nerves. I talked about God. I talked about seeing God. You know, I talked about you know, the way we are. Did I talk about that? I don't know. But anyway, I took him on I took him on a great trip. And then after, I had this old Jewish guy come up. He says, I want to hear more. I'd like to hear more. I like that.
Yeah.
And I did that in Berlin, too. We were in Berlin for a pot thing, you know. And it was a tobacco conference, and they wanted me to talk. Again, you know, like it's a comedian. Who knows, you know? And this time I did a whole rap about tobacco and smoking. And then I went very spiritual, you know. And then after that, I'm getting a massage. You know, again, it was one of those events, you know, where they have people doing massages and
holistic stuff.
And so I'm laying on the table getting a massage, and this girl comes underneath looking at my face. I love what you said. Oh, I can really relate to it. I want to hear more. No, I'm having so much fun now with it, because you know, like the podcast, you know, they ask me, you know, they ask me about weed, and I'll get off into the God trip, and it makes, like, especially on Twitter, it makes them, you know, when you pull that card out, it just really rubs a lot of these I guess atheists or non-believers, it rubs them the wrong way, you know.
Right. Yeah. They don't get it. Can't wrap their head around that.
Yeah, purposely, and I go there purposely just for that effect too, you know.
Yeah.
And because the thing is, those that have ears, they will hear, and those that don't, well, you know, they can ask, or they can just be, you know, uncomfortable. I love making people uncomfortable. I do that at dinner parties sometimes. In fact, especially with the Trumpies and all the, you know, if there are new people there, I always say, yeah, well, when I was in jail, in the conversation, you can say,
yeah.
Oh, how many? Oh, I got to leave now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's calling me.
All right.
We're going to go watch the debate over at a friend's house.
There you have it, part 2 of my chat with the one and only Tommy Chong. My thanks again to Tommy for so generously sharing his time and his cool story. I hope you will be back for the penultimate part 3 of episode 17 with Tommy Chong. That episode will be out any day now. Also, thanks again to another great entertainer, Mr. Jerry Stamp, who wrote and performed the Cool Story theme song and all of the other jingles and stings that appear on the show. Given that we stitched together so many chats in part 1, I'm pretty sure that we used all of Jerry's guitar stings to keep things flowing between those segments. So thank you again, Jerry. I hope that Newfoundland is treating you well, and I hope to buy you a drink sometime soon at Zarpe when you do eventually return to Costa Rica. And as I always suggest, do yourselves a favor and look for Jerry's music wherever you stream. Jerry Stamp. Look him up. And finally, thank you for listening. Until next time, pura vida.
Everybody's had some adventures. Everybody's had a few close calls. 'cause everybody's got a story. What's yours?